Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. And this week, another conversation that we have to have. Cue the music. Hello again, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. My name is Scott James Merridew, and this is a show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and I'm joined each week by a very special different guest. Please welcome back to the show, Archit Tripathi. Now, Archit, I wish you were here under better circumstances.
Yeah, me too. Before we get into grimmer topics, I will say it's always a pleasure to be here, and I don't know if it's just because the new Zencastr thing allows me to hear more of the production, but oh my god, the production, like that theme song was so cool. Like there's just a lot, it seems like a lot of things are on the up and up. This is awesome.
Yeah, now time was, Capers, we used to edit in the theme song post-production. Now we get to do it live, as it were.
I kind of love it. It adds, it just gets you pumped up for the whole thing.
I wish we were pumping you up for better things. So as you can clearly guessed by the title, Capers, I want to do this episode much like how we did our Black Lives Matter shows in days gone by, in order to not address, because let's be honest, no one's looking to Podcapers to seek any sorts of answers for what's happening right now, but to at least acknowledge the huge rise in attacks on Asian and Asian American people in the US and in the UK over in recent years. And I mean, I knew it was happening. I'm sure, Archie, you also knew it was happening, but only now has it become newsworthy.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. I mean, what becomes newsworthy when? But yeah, I mean, this has been happening for quite a while. It's definitely been on the rise very steadily, especially thanks to as soon as the coronavirus news of that started spreading around, there's been multiple groups that have been watching it and reporting and tracking these statistics, these awful statistics of how hate crimes and racially motivated acts of violence are occurring at a much more alarming frequency ever since that news really started. And when I say Asian, I mean, in this particular instance, specifically more of the East Asian community, more of the people who have the kind of descent or the features of Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, that kind of that area of Asia, because there's also, the Middle Eastern Asians and myself, Indian Asians, who are maybe a little bit less affected by this particular thing, but it's tragic nonetheless, and we all need to stand together.
Absolutely, because this is not an isolated thing.
No.
I've taken it upon myself to try and, even though I don't live in the US, to try and learn the history of how Asian people have been treated throughout the history of the US and indeed the UK. And it's not good. It's never been good. The brutality, the inequality has always been there. And this is just the latest form of it. And we are going to talk about all of that, as well as highlight, gave us some, what we think are some great examples of Asian superheroes, because this is a pop culture show. We do talk about superheroes. So that's what we're going to revolve this discussion around. But before we do all of that, we're going to get into the news. So first up, two bits of casting news, specifically relating to DC. It's all going down in DC town in the wake of the Snyderverse cut thing. Fans are happy. DC itself is not happy. Zack Snyder is just sitting in the middle, letting chaos reign. Meanwhile, Ron Livingston has been announced to replace Billy Crudup as, I don't know his name, The Flash's dad. We all remember those two scenes that Billy Crudup was in both Joss Whedon's and Zack Snyder's Justice League, but now he's been replaced by Ron Livingston.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like that, like that reaction gif that's been going viral of Whoopi Goldberg just saying, okay, after Meghan McCain rants. It's just like,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool, whatever.
That was a thing you said that drove another nail into your career coffin. Yeah, it's basically that. I mean, I like Robin Livingston. I think he's a good actor. Love me some Office Space. I know that's everyone's go-to Ron Livingston thing, but still. But slightly more interestingly, or at least it's definitely gotten a bit more of a reaction online, Pierce Brosnan has been cast as Dr. Fate in the upcoming Black Adam movie.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, you never would think of Pierce Brosnan being in a superhero movie. Even it is like pre and mid and post James Bond days. You never really thought Pierce Brosnan superhero movies. But I guess he's jumping on the bandwagon as Dr. Fate. And considering how Dr. Fate, I think, was it Hector Hall who was Dr. Fate? I can't remember. Was that someone else? I don't know. But I remember Dr. Fate often being portrayed.
Kent Nelson? Or,
Kent Nelson.
Hector Hall was also another one, you're right. Hector Hall was another
one. Was Ken Nelson, yes. It was Ken Nelson, and then it was Hector Hall. I remember because the first time I ever read anything relating to Dr. Fate, it featured Hector Hall, not Ken Nelson, and it was only later I realised. Ken Nelson you would have seen in something like Young Justice or Injustice 2, Gods Among Us, or whatever it was called. So Pierce Brosnan has been cast presumably as Ken Nelson in Black Adam, which, I mean, considering the fact it's already got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in it, casting-wise, she's shaping up to be a pretty interesting movie. I'm interested to see what he does with that, because he's a very unique actor, Pierce Brosnan. You'd think, having played James Bond, he would sort of fit in this sort of uber machismo sort of role, but
he's got the acting chops for sure. I'm more curious about the physicality of it, of what like these superhero movies tend to demand. I'm kind of wondering, like, how, especially at this age, like how jacked up can he get to play? Because Dr. Fate is still pretty muscular.
I think they might do what they did with Shazam, which give him like a body suit.
Oh, gotcha. Well, Zach Levy did buff up, though. I mean, he definitely did. Like, if you see him now walking around, like he's definitely muscled up quite a bit since.
Our little Chuck's grown up.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy to see him buff. Like, I can't see him as anything other than Chuck. I just can't. And God bless him, he managed to get out of that role and create an awesome, lucrative career for himself. Between that and also in Marvel, he's the handsome guy from the Thor crew.
His name is Fandral.
Yes. I mean,
he has a name. He's more than just a pretty face.
He's just a pretty piece of meat. But yeah,
no, I think you'll find Volstagg is the pretty piece of meat, played by Ray Stevenson.
I love Volstagg, and I love that actor too. He's great in everything he's done.
Yeah, I mean, I liked him in Shazam. I really did. I thought he was great. He wasn't my go-to. Okay, potentially unpopular opinion incoming. I thought John Cena should have been Shazam.
Oh, but then we would have never seen him.
Well, true. We would have never seen
John Cena is obviously the Invisible Man.
Sure.
Because you can't see him.
Well, I think you will be able to see him in the upcoming Suicide Squad movie, which the new trailer has just dropped. Have you seen it?
I have not. No, I've kind of stayed away from Suicide Squad because I heard the last one was so bad, and I just never got around to watching it.
You are absolutely right in that assessment. Okay, so Archit, people who regularly have listened to Podcapers since the beginning will remember this, so apologies. But Archit, you may not have heard this. My very first podcast appearance on the Jock and Nerd podcast, check them out, I said that whilst I loathe DC, I was very much looking forward to the David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie. I said, It looks cool, it's going to be interesting, it's got a unique premise, this is going to be fantastic. And wouldn't you know it, DC made a liar out of me!
Yeah, because I think it was kind of pitched to be like the DC version of Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Of taking kind of this slightly more obscure team and making them super fun.
It wasn't pitched to be Guardians of the Galaxy DC's version. It became that post-production. That's what happened. And that's part of the reason why it was so bad. There's many other reasons beyond that. But this new one, directed by James Gunn, possibly shaping up to be quite good. I have not seen the trailer simply because I avoid superhero movie trailers, so I can avoid any and all spoilers. I include basically any plot point, any character, a spoiler. I saw the first trailer where it was just like a montage of all the characters and their names. I highly recommend you check that out, if for no other else than wondering why one of the doctors is suddenly got a little bit of electrodes on his skull. But it looks to be a really cool movie. I'm not gonna hold my breath, but we'll see how that goes. But just in case any of you are wondering, there's a new trailer. You want to go and watch that? Go check it out. And finally, our first non-bit of DC news. It has been announced that there is going to be a Ghost of Tsushima movie. Did you play that game, Ghost of Tsushima?
No, I'm an Xbox guy, so unfortunately I couldn't. And I'm like legitimately that and the God of War series, because I just love like mythological type stuff. And so that and the God of War series are honestly the things that are making me just be like, fuck, do I just save up and blow some money on a PlayStation 2? Because
you might need to go two steps
so
above PlayStation 2.
Oh, I mean, no, like a PlayStation as well. But yeah, like
sorry.
I want it so like I want to play both of them. They look so fucking good. The Ghost of Tsushima, I've heard so many good things about, and it looks beautiful on all the clips I've seen.
I mean, I played it and I really enjoyed it. But if you don't get a chance to play it, then good news, because the movie is coming to us from Sony Pictures that have owned the game. And Chad Stahelski, I don't know if that's how you say his name, is attached to direct. This is the guy who directed, I don't know if it was the first John Wick movie or one of the John Wick movies, but he's about to do the fourth John Wick movie, and he's done all the John Wick movies. I'm just seeing now. Which is not a bad director to be going for, like an uber samurai movie, but that's also very cinematic. And that is the one criticism I have, though. The game was highly cinematic. It had full-fledged acting in it. We don't really need a movie of it, to be perfectly honest. But, I mean, if they want to be the guys to take a chance on a movie version of a video game, more power to them. Plenty of people have fallen over that hurdle before. Who knows? Maybe this will be the one to change everything.
You know what it is? Honestly, I think the reason that movies have been on the decline for so long in general compared to TV, especially like streaming TV, like Netflix shows and video games, is because both streaming shows and video games have the ability to tell a much more detailed and immersive narrative. They can take that time to really build the story, build the world, get you super invested in everything. Whereas a movie, by its very nature, you're kind of limited to a 2.5, 3 hours if you really fucking put the Snyderverse.
4 hours if you're Zack Snyder.
Right, I heard that was like 4 hours, and that's probably one of the longest runtimes. That's unheard of. You know what I mean?
I mean, there have been some like 1920s, 1940s productions that, like big epics that have famously gone on for similar lengths of time. I think the maximum has been like 5 hours. Don't quote me on that. I don't claim to be a film historian.
But with a Netflix show, you're getting 1 hour episodes. You're getting maybe like 10 of them, and you could potentially binge it all in a single day. So you get 10 hours of a really immersive narrative in a single day versus with a movie. Again, it can be like maybe, so it's a slightly shorter movie, but you're getting 10 of them at a time. And with a video game, you have generally 50, 60 hours for most AAA games. And so you just have so much more time to be in it and immerse yourself.
I mean, I don't like to make this direct comparisons between video games and movies because, in my mind, yes, they're both storytelling art forms, but at the end of the day, they are very different forms of storytelling art forms. It's like comparing a play to a movie or an audio drama to a graphic novel. There are comparisons to make, but that's not necessarily means they're fair. So, I don't know. You're absolutely right. There's much more time to tell a fully fledged narrative, but I mean, who knows? The proof of the pudding is in the eating, and I honestly think if there was any video game that they could base a movie out on that would make the most sense, it would be Ghost of Tsushima. I can never remember if that's how you pronounce Tsushima. I'm not Japanese. I don't speak Japanese. I do apologize if that's wrong.
Yeah, me neither. So we apologize to anyone we're butchering this for.
I'm going to get a lot of names wrong today. I can only apologize. I'm going to try and get them right. I mean, this is the thing, especially with the Chinese language. A lot of the words you think are pronounced in certain ways when they're anglicized, but they're really not. I've been watching
right.
a lot because I've been watching lots of like breakdowns and analysis of Avatar: The Last Airbender to see how certain names and words have either been corrupted in translation or actually were held up to be very authentic in translation. There's this great YouTuber whose name escapes me who does. She did like this comparison of all the things that were culturally wrong with the 2020 live action Mulan movie and then the 1990s animated Mulan movie, and how it's actually much better in terms of pure, authentic, what was historically accurate and what wasn't. Wow. And they really know their stuff. So I highly recommend check them out if you can find them. I'm sure they're blowing up on YouTube. They're going viral. You should be fine with that. Where was I going with this? That's so. If I get something wrong, it's purely out of ignorance, not malice. I do apologize. One thing that I will not apologize for is for liking this new series out on Amazon Prime, Invincible. You haven't seen it, have you?
I have. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if that was. No, I haven't. I got to be honest. Like, I don't know. Amazon Prime. I have it because most of us have it. I don't go on there very much. I don't know if maybe Amazon is just not advertising its shows aggressively enough to me. They need Amazon. I know you're listening, so just be more aggressive with your targeting for me.
I mean, for God's sake, who messed up so much that they didn't directly target Archit Tripathi?
Well, you can do it now, so why didn't you? Come on, Alexa. I know you're listening.
Oh, God. I've just been desperate to use that sound clip. Sorry. But the reason why I bring up Invincible is we are going to do a review of Invincible when the series is completely out. A few episodes are out already, but we're not going to review it until all the episodes are out. I am a pretty big fan of the Invincible comic series by Robert Kirkman et al. And I'm pleased to say that the television show, the animated television show, holds up. It's really, really good so far. But interesting, love. Reason why I bring this up is because the main character, Mark Grayson, in the comics was Caucasian. Well, he was half human, half alien. But in the Amazon Prime series, he's now half Asian.
Oh, okay.
His mother is Asian, I think played by Sandra Oh? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Sandra Oh. And his dad is a Caucasian-seeming alien played by, get me photos of Spider-Man, J.K. Simmons.
Love him in everything.
And best of all, Mark Grayson is now played by Stephen Yeun.
Oh, nice! Hey!
Yes!
He's great.
Love me some Stephen Yeun. He's
great.
Avatar 1!
Stephen Yeun is great.
He is absolutely fantastic. And so I bring that up just because that's...
I have to check that out.
You should absolutely check it out. Capus, if you haven't checked it out already, please do. I will warn you, it is, whilst it is an adult... while it is an animated show, it is targeted towards adults. There is swearing and there is violence in it of a bloody and gory nature, so just bear that in mind before you go into it. And that is also present in the comics, though, so that's authentic, and we approve of that. Now, before we go into our main topic for the day, here's some ads for you.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Asian superheroes and Asian American superheroes in just a bit. Before we go any further, Archie, should we just talk about how we got here briefly?
Sure. I mean, obviously, I think for anybody who's been keeping up with the news, we've become aware of how there's been horrifying and rising trend in racially motivated violence against Asian populations, against people who, you know, even look Asian, specifically East Asian, like more like Chinese, because of the whole thing of COVID and
Hmm.
Trump and many other xenophobic leaders referring to it as the China virus, blah blah blah. So that's created a lot of very horrible racist backlash, and it,
Yeah.
it just
Fanned by the previous United States administration.
yes, very much so, very much so. I mean, they'll say no, but we all know.
I mean, yeah, the racism is blatantly obvious. And like we said, there is historical precedent for all of this going back as soon as Asian people uh, first came to the United States, as it was the United States. And I mean, at one point, they're held up as an epitome of evilness and wrongness. On the next hand, they're held up as a, quote, model minority, which is just
Yes,
it's the same stereotyping, but just in a positive light as opposed
it's
to a
such
negative
an
light.
yeah, it's such a crazy dichotomy that that Asian people have faced, specifically in America. I mean, probably in a lot of other places too, but definitely within the American context. I mean, initially during the California Gold Rush, there was a wave of Chinese immigrants that came over to California to help build the railroads, in particular. And there was a lot of resentment. There was, I think, the Chinese American Immigration Act, which was like a pretty racist thing. That was around the time that actually opium and heroin actually became more criminalized in America because they were seen as the Chinese drugs and as part of the Chinese scourge, as it were. And so that was, you know, I mean, there's a lot of, honestly, if you look at the history of drug policy in America, you'll notice that a lot of it has to do with what group they want to keep down at the time. But yeah, so it goes all the way back to that at least. And then, as you pointed out, you know, later on, Asians became held up as like exactly like you said, this quote unquote model minority, which is like, oh look, they came and they I guess they ate the shit that we fed them, and
Mm.
then they worked hard enough and just like didn't fight back and didn't do anything, and they worked hard and they established a life for themselves. And you know, Asian people are generally like there's that stereotype that they are all very high performers academically, which you know there is a certain cultural component that does obviously value academics very highly within most Asian cultures across the
But
board.
that is a generalization. It doesn't apply to everyone.
Exactly. I mean, there's obviously there's people who are very studious, and there's people who just aren't, and there's people who are adventurous. There's people who are rowdy, who are boisterous. You know, there's also this whole thing of like, oh, that Asians are meek and gentle and submissive and quiet, and that's also obviously not. You can't apply a blanket generalization to any group of people. There's always
No.
going to be people who are have everybody has their own personality. There's always mixes.
And part of the reason why, and when I say part of the reason, I mean just that part of the reason, not the entire reason, of why the shooting at Atlanta happened was because of this huge fetishization of
Yes.
Asian people.
Yeah.
So when we say Asian people, we're not talking about Asian people as a monolith. Just keep that in mind. But yeah, I mean, because the shooter claimed that he was battling sex addiction, and that was why it was denounced by the local police as not a hate crime, but in fact a bad day.
A bad day. Are you kidding? Oh, he was having a bad day? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, he was having a bad day. Yeah, okay.
and
It's
whereas
just,
because put plainly, when one person targets a group of people who are all the same ethnicity, 9 times out of 10, it's a hate crime.
yep.
It's a racially motivated, premeditated mass murder. And they were so unwilling to say that. I'd say it would surprise me, but honestly, it doesn't surprise me. And of course, I don't want to say follow-up shooting because they were unconnected, but nevertheless, the shooting that then happened in Boulder, Colorado. I mean, it will never not be. No, it will never not be alien to me to see mass shootings like that as a British person, because we just don't have that. We haven't had that since the 90s when a maniac went into a school with a gun and killed several children and a teacher, and we as a nation stood up and said, never again.
Yeah.
And
we
then,
had the exact same thing happen and didn't do much but send thoughts and
well, that's the thing to say. Actually, plenty of people have done a lot of things. Plenty of people have campaigned, have protested, have organized, who have tried desperately to enact some kind of reasonable, sensible change.
Absolutely. And I don't want to negate the efforts of so many very passionate gun control advocates out there, but on a policy level as a nation, how much have we really adopted that's changed since Sandy Hook?
It's gotten worse.
It's a little it's pretty disappointing. The numbers are not great. That should have been the moment. And to me, that's always been kind of a watershed moment for me in terms of where America is in terms of its ability to actually address its issues. Because when you have a crime that heinous and that senseless, and to not really have any real, meaningful, long-lasting change on a national level come out of it, that says everything right there. That's okay. So none of our problems will be fixed, because if we can't solve this, then what hope is there for anything else? We can't agree that we need to do something tangible about the murder of children. Then that's it, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And I mean, I want to make this clear. It's not the American people's fault that that's happening. Whether you're very pro-gun or anti-gun, wherever you lie on that spectrum, it's not really your fault. Sadly, and I hope I don't come across as a conspiracy nut at this point, but Archit, your government has been bought and paid for by gun lobbyists, special interest groups, and gun manufacturers.
All kinds of special interest groups. Yeah, again, in America, it seems like there's no crime that money cannot absolve. Like, that's pretty much it. It's how expensive is it to commit that crime? That's really it. There's no, if the punishment for something is just something that you can buy your way out of, then it's not really a crime anymore. It's just the price of doing business X, Y, and Z.
Exactly, yeah. It's honestly kind of horrifying. And even though right now I can't go to your country, when stuff like this happens, it makes me not want to. Because I know the chances of someone I know being killed or hurt in one of those attacks, or even just the random everyday gun violence that happens all the time, year round, it's scary, because it's difficult for me to fully articulate how I feel, because part of my privilege growing up in this country is I have never, ever had to worry about being shot. I've had to worry about so many other things in my life, but never gun violence. Never. Right. Other violence, sure. Gun violence, no. It's not a thing over here and in so many other parts of the developed world. And this is not the first time. Atlanta was not the first time where this kind of gun violence is directed specifically at a specific community, and it won't be the last. And I don't want to sound defeatist. I really, really don't. There's always hope as long as you keep trying. It's only when you stop trying, then you've truly failed and it's truly over. But there are people in power that are willing for that change to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and tell you, Archit, or the American people how to conduct your business, because I don't have that right. But we managed it, and we're the UK, one of the most incompetent first world governments in the world right now. So can you. You really can.
God, I hope so, man. I really, really hope so, because it's just... and for me, honestly, I am an immigrant coming to this country. I mean, I've lived here for over 15 years now, but having grown up most of my life in other places, yeah, it was the same kind of thing of where that was not a concern. Like well, I mean, most Americans of my generation probably didn't have active shooter drills in their schools either, but kids nowadays do. It's just a thing they practice this with the same kind of regularity and nonchalance as you would for a fire drill, and the alarm happens, this is what you do. And it's just that just breaks my heart. I don't think any child should have to live in a world where that happens, where that's considered just a normal thing. It just doesn't sit right with me. And I regularly, as kind of still having a little bit of an outsider perspective while living in America, I regularly am just like, how are all of the people not incredibly fed up and just up in arms about this? Because I know they are too, and I know that everybody is fed up of this, and yet at the same time, I don't know how, for whatever reason, we stay distracted enough with other squabbles to really all collectively be like, this has got to stop.
I mean, if up to me, I would make it legal, indeed mandatory, to post the exact numbers of campaign contributions that lobbyists like those manufacturers make to politicians online for everyone to see, so they know exactly how much they paid and who they paid it to and who it's from. That's just me.
Transparency goes a long way. Yes.
Because again, this is something, again, that doesn't happen over here. I'm not saying like we don't have special interest groups over here, but campaigns in the US are based solely around money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case over here. Campaigns are based around, I'm wearing a tie, vote for me.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you guys don't really have Citizens United, or at least not to the extent that it is here. Citizens United, which
do, but not to. It's just the way we conduct campaigns over here, political campaigns.
Yeah,
they're very short. There is little to no money involved.
They're short too, because over here it's almost a year of campaigning.
I don't get that. That must be exhausting for everyone.
Oh my God, is it?
And the reason why I bring all this up is because, yes, there's big moments like what happened in Atlanta, but there's also not smaller moments, but individual moments that happen, like we said, we've just got random gun violence all year round. I've been looking online at news reports, like local US news, about so many different attacks on Asian American people that were 100% racially motivated. I mean, you don't have to look far to find instances of either police abusing their power or individual citizens just being racist dickwads. You don't have to go far, sadly. And that's part of what I want to do this, because yes, Atlanta got a lot of people talking about it. But the more we talk about it, the more we keep on talking about it, the more this stuff like that. Because if there's one thing bigotry hates, it's a spotlight.
Yes. Well, I don't know. Lately, I don't know. Donald Trump, I mean, that's bigotry that loves the spotlight.
That's a very good point. Jesus, but everything about that man is abnormal. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to talk about some of our favorite Asian superheroes, because that's what we do on Podcapers. We talk about representation. We talk about awesome characters that come from awesome cultures. We're going to have a great time talking about that. Just to let you know, we are not going to be talking about anime characters specifically, because if we did, we'd be here all fucking day. And also, like, what is exactly defined as a superhero in Japanese animation varies. Like, there's One Punch Man on one scale, definitely superhero. Then you go all the way down to, like, Naruto, or like, even, the big one is Goku. Where does Goku rank?
Yes, I know. And I mean, I do feel like we might want to visit just the Goku versus Superman debate at some point, just lightly, because I think you've got some thoughts on it, and I want to hear them, because I'm not convinced.
So, let me put this way. I I like Goku way more than I like Superman, even though he's a tiny bit of a deadbeat dad. It should be mentioned that I only know Goku through Team 4 Star's Dragon Ball Z abridged series, not the actual series proper, which you should totally check out. I've seen a few episodes of the original Dragon Ball just because I wanted to start at the beginning. Then I saw how many episodes it had and I thought, nope, don't have time to spend on that. Jesus, got shit to do.
Oh my god, yeah, right?
But with Goku versus Superman, there's this other YouTube channel called Death Battle, which I highly recommend to check them out. They pit various characters in media against similar characters in other media together and analyze their strengths and weaknesses based on all canon stats to see who would win in a fight to the death. Goku and Superman have gone toe-to-toe several times because they keep updating the characters and their powers. Okay. And as far as I know, each time, Superman has won.
Is it mostly because of laser eyes?
No, it's because of everything. Just everything. And bear in mind, their battles have ended up with like the destruction of planet Earth, where only Superman is left. And these guys, they know their stuff. They are not biased by their favorite character. They purely go through just analyzing everything, from the comics to all the TV shows, everything to try and figure out who would hypothetically fight. And it is still a hypothetical. I mean, there's a million different factors that go into a fight that determine victory, not just raw power. But it made a lot of fanboys angry, and they've had to explain. They have shown their workings. So check it out for yourself. Maybe you might agree, maybe you might disagree. It's fine either way. But considering the amount of times they've done it, I think they've conclusively proven that Superman is stronger than Goku. But Goku is better because Goku is nice.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to say is I don't know which one of them would actually kill first. Which one
Superman.
of them would use lethal force? You think so?
Actually, no, I was about to say Superman, but I would say both. They both killed. They're both.
But who would get there first in their fight?
Probably Goku, but only if he thought Superman would hurt other people.
Well, I mean, their fight is literally destroying the entire planet. And Goku's family definitely lives on planet Earth.
That is a good point. They're not living on Namek. So.
Right.
That's a very good point. So, I mean, he's a great example because here's the thing, though. This is the interesting thing with the Asian concept of superhero, because Asian superheroes have arguably existed long before the prototypical European superhero. The thing we look to most is like Hercules, maybe Gilgamesh. But when you look at things like Journey to the West, I don't know where that ranks in the timeline because I am not a historian, like I said. But Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, has so many superpowers. Mm-hmm. He is the textbook definition of OP. I mean, don't get me wrong. Oh my God, he's so goddamn cool!
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact that he can create infinite clones of himself. His stick can extend as far as the fucking moon. He can jump over the planet Earth. He traveled to the furthest distance of the universe in the mere fraction of a second. And yeah, it turns out the universe was just the palm of Buddha's hand. But still, that's a whole fucking thing. I don't have time to go into it. Another YouTube channel you should go watch is Overly Sarcastic Productions. They do a whole Legend Summarize thing. They can explain it far better than I ever could. But it's so fascinating for me to see that sort of superhero archetype in Asian mythology, then leaking down through the ages to Asian pop culture. Because a lot of what we're going to talk about now is characters that were written by Americans or in the West, who sort of model them on the traditional Western superhero. And then you look at some animes that are out there, and some mangas, and even some, like, say, novels and mythology, and it's a difference of night and day. Superman would definitely lose against Sun Wukong.
Who? Oh, I don't know who that is.
That's the... Okay, so you will have heard of, if not consciously, then subconsciously, of this character called the Monkey King.
Okay, yes.
So, the monkey is what Son Goku was based on in part. Dragon Ball Z was sort of a take on Journey to the West, which is a whole tale of redemption through for the Monkey King. He gets buried under a mountain by Buddha, who's just like, "You've been a naughty boy, Monkey King. Stop it, mountain." Then a couple of centuries passed, and this Buddhist monk, can't remember the name, I think he takes on the name Tripitaka, comes along and it's like, "Hey, I've got a bunch of sacred texts with me, but I need a guide to help me get back to the West," or back from the West, I can't remember which one it is. And so Buddha's like, "Oi, Monkey King, you do anything?" "No." "Okay, guide this guy, and then we'll be even Stevens." And then they pick up like a pig demon, a water demon, and something like that. It's a whole journey. It's probably the most famous, at least in the West, famous Chinese text out there, which I should point out I have not read. I've seen like a couple of episodes from Chinese television productions. I think there was a Netflix adaptation that I watched a few episodes of, and like I said, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. It's hugely influential, and I was about to say it's worth your time reading, but I haven't read it, so take me at my word. And so that's where we start from. And granted, that is just China. That doesn't speak for everyone. But I think we should actually properly start there. So we'll start with some Chinese superheroes. We're not going to do a top 10 thing. We're just going to have a bit of a casual conversation about them. So I want to start with my favorite superhero team, the X-Men. Specifically with a smaller character that's gotten a bit of more popularity in recent years, Blink. Now, in the comics, she is not Chinese, but she became Chinese, as far as I'm aware, in the movie X-Men: Days of Future Past, where she's played by Fan Bingbing. And then later on, in the TV series The Gifted, which is pathetically average, she was played by Jamie Chung, who actually did a very good job, in fairness, because Jamie Chung is awesome.
Okay, yeah, I actually just looked her up, and I remember her from the movie, from the Days of Future Past.
Yeah, and so Blink is Blink is fucking awesome, I'll tell you why. Because she has the ability to teleport basically anywhere on planet Earth. In fact, she can even go further than that. According to one source, she can teleport as far away as the moon. Blink, and she's gone. And she's the epitome of thinking with portals. She's so cool to do that. And it's there's been a recent trend, a spate, if you will, of previously Caucasian. She was never really Caucasian because she had like pinkish skin in the comics. But I don't know. But she definitely wasn't Asian. She was originally introduced in something called the Phalanx Covenant storyline, which is that's a whole fucking thing. And she's popped up intermittently throughout the X-Men verse over the years. But the first time I ever remember thinking about her, ever seeing her, was in the video game X-Men Legends 2, where she was in charge of teleporting the X-Men team all over the world. And from then on, like I said, she gets portrayed by Fan Bingbing in X-Men Days of Future Past, which was, again, she was just there to teleport people. It wasn't until Jamie Chung played her in The Gifted where we really got to see a Chinese version of her, at least Chinese-American. Is that your phone?
Yeah, I think so. Sorry.
It's okay. Do you want to get that, or?
No, it's this. I'm just going to mute it. There we go.
Play that version of Blink in The Gifted. Did you see The Gifted, that TV show from Fox?
Did I see the... Oh, I did see The Gifted. I mean, I think I saw like the first 4 or 5 episodes, and then, I don't know, I got busy doing something, and I just like stopped watching it.
It was not a show that demanded your attention. I mean, they were trying desperately. Fox has been desperate recently. I mean, less so thanks to the merger, to keep the X-Men franchise going after lackluster film after lackluster film. The Gifted was set in sort of like the Logan timeline, where the X-Men were all dead and gone. And so now it's like, oh, mutants have to look out for themselves. Because that's what we want from an X-Men TV show. The X-Men all being dead and a bunch of mutants we don't really know. And that would have been fine. It would have been fine if it weren't for the fact that the main characters was this family of the most annoying people ever. I mean, it helped that the dad of the family was played by Stephen Moyer of True Blood Flame. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or the mum was played by Amy Acker of Angel and many other things fame. She's awesome. But the kids were annoying, especially the boy. The boy can just fuck right off.
Yes.
And these were brand new characters for the show that we didn't care about. And meanwhile, we were putting people like Polaris, who was awesome, to the sideline, as well as Blink and a whole host of other characters. Eclipse was there.
Blink, okay. Oh, yeah, she was in that show. Okay, the purple-haired girl who did the portals. Right. Okay. Yeah. Now I remember her. But yes, everything you said about that show to describe it was spot on. It just didn't, like the first couple of episodes, I was like, okay, the premise is interesting. A family on the run, maybe a little bit divided about which way they want to go. All right. But then, 4 or 5 episodes in, I just kind of lost the thread. And I was like, it's not enough here.
I mean, it's no season 1 of Legion. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, that was a fun show. I gotta check out the new season's out. Season 2.
There's 2 seasons of The Gifted and 3 seasons of Legion, but I only watched the first one, and frankly, that was enough for me. So, because again,
I actually liked that. I enjoyed that. The whole. It was interesting seeing Aubrey Plaza be that weird character. That was. I don't know, I'm a huge Parks and Rec nerd, and so anytime I see one of those guys in anything, I will instantly just watch it because of my love of Parks and Rec.
Have you seen that other movie she's in, The Happiest Season?
No, I haven't. I saw the one. I saw the other one though, where she is obsessed with Elizabeth Olsen's Instagram.
Well, I mean, who isn't?
that was a good one, but Happiest Season. No, that's not the one where she's the masturbating lifeguard, right? No. That was a different... Some other comedy. Okay.
I think that was that Robert De Niro movie where he's with Zac Efron, maybe. Or maybe that was the one that she was in with Anna Kendrick, which also had Zac Efron in it. I don't know.
Oh, that Christmas movie.
Yes, that's the one.
I just did that. I did see that she was in it, but that one, I take back. I've become a liar in the last 10 minutes because I didn't watch that, even though I knew she was in it, because I can't do that cheesy multi-ensemble Christmas rom-com.
It's not cheesy. It's not cheesy at all, though. It's actually really, really good. So
you're vouching for Happiest Season?
I am vouching for Happiest Season. I thought it was a very good movie. It's a very interesting movie. She's great in it. All the other characters are really great in it. Let me put it this way. It's a good performance from Kristen Stewart.
That's saying a lot. But no, I mean, I just saw the trailer and it just kind of reminded me of it almost seemed like one of those Love Actually or what was that movie that had Ashton Kutcher and the girl from Glee around New Year's Eve and the whole thing, just that ensemble cast love story.
Oh.
That's what the trailers made it look like. And so I was like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Just brace yourself because...
I feel the sickening threat of brutal honesty and I'm wildly uncomfortable.
No, Happiest Season... I mean, here's the thing with Love Actually. Love Actually is a very good movie by Richard Curtis. And then fucking... Pretty Woman Gary Marshall comes in. He's like, oh, I can do the same thing. And then does this film called Valentine's Day, which is shit. Then he does another movie called New Year's Day, which is...
That was the Ashton Kutcher one, I think. You're right, yeah.
which was also shit. Then he does another movie called like Mother's Day or something like that, which is the epitome of shit. And no, I'm not going to let the fact that he is sadly passed deter me from saying that I hate him and I don't like those movies. God, I am a bastard. I am such an awful, awful bastard. But,
Yeah, but so is he for driving every holiday into the ground.
I don't like those movies. I don't like that he blatantly, pathetically tried to recapture the quality of Love Actually, which I think is a genuinely good movie.
You know what? I'm willing to concede. I am willing to concede that point that quite possibly my memory of Love Actually is tainted by the 100 spin-offs that came after that were just like, here's a bunch of stars and they're all in love and it's a major holiday.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that, everyone. But here's the thing with Happiest Season. I don't know why we're fucking talking about that instead of Asian American Superhero.
I know. I'm sorry. We just
Happiest Season.
The power of Aubrey Plaza. The magnetism.
Oh god, it's a genuinely good movie. It's not schmaltzy. It's actually really interesting. I humbly recommend you check it out. Moving on from Aubrey Plaza, I want to talk about Colleen Wing. I was not familiar with this character.
Okay, this is one that I actually, thankfully, am familiar with because of the show.
Oh, see, I haven't seen her in the comics, but I did see her in. She was the only good thing in Iron Fist.
Yeah, she was awesome. I loved her character. She was great. She was just a total badass and portrayed it really well. Yeah, it was great. I mean, yeah, because the guy playing Danny Rand is not great. Sorry, man.
Actually, you know what? I can't remember his name. Finn something Finn. I can't remember, but he's actually a decent actor. He was just not good in that show, but that's because nothing was really good in that show apart from Colleen Wing.
Yeah. That it didn't get the due that it needed. You know,
and
yeah, it didn't have it.
And I love Iron Fist. I think he's a great character. A lot of people criticize the character of Iron Fist because he's a white man who utilizes Asian mythology and folklore as well as Asian martial arts. And I get where people are coming from.
And he also kind of becomes like the white savior to this ancient Asian village community mystical.
That's more of a show thing, not so much in the comics.
Right.
But in my limited defense of Iron Fist, I will say this. I personally believe that culture is meant to be shared. But if you're going to share it, you have to come from a place of respect, authenticity, and honesty. I think Iron Fist, bear in mind Iron Fist started as just as a response to, it was the 70s, you know,
Kung
Bruce
Fu
Lee
is
was in
popular,
full
you
swing.
guys. Let's cash in.
Basically, yes. And that does not excuse any cultural appropriation. And I'm not going to lie, it is cultural appropriation, but at least in the UK and the US, you can't get away from that. So, which is why I'm so glad that we have characters like Colleen Wing, but we also have characters like Shang-Chi, who is getting his own movie.
I'm excited for that because that's somebody that I know next to nothing about. But it's cool that they're giving somebody very, at least to me, very obscure a chance like that.
I mean, how can I describe Shang-Chi?
Oh no, he's hot!
I mean,
he's very good looking. What?
He's very good looking, but also he is the Marvel Universe's chief martial artist. But unlike Iron Fist, he does not use any fancy magical stuff, at least as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
He just uses pure kung fu, or at least kung fu inspired martial arts style.
So he's kind of like the Liu Kang of this Mortal Kombat.
Absolutely sure, except he can't turn into a dragon.
Oh yeah, Liu Kang could do that. Shit. All right.
But here's the thing, though. I'm so excited to see Marvel do a martial arts movie because I love martial arts movies. Mm-hmm. It's going to be called Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. directed by Destin Daniel Creton. I don't know how to pronounce that. Who I don't know his exact ethnicity, but he is an Asian gentleman. And he's going to be played by this Canadian Chinese actor called Simu Liu, who you may know from this show that I've not seen called Kim's Convenience.
No, I mean, I see it on Netflix. Keeps trying to recommend it to me all the time. But
I mean, it must be
never
good. I mean,
clicked on it.
that guy from The Mandalorian is in it, and that guy is awesome. I cannot remember his name. He's a Korean-American actor. He's really cool, but he does his own
in the
cosplay.
Was he the guy that was in the? He was one of the two rebel fighter pilots who escorted the Mandalorian down. Okay, all right, I know who you're talking about. Okay.
And what's so cool about this? It's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which I believe is a reference to the terrorist organization, the Ten Rings, who are the people that captured Tony Stark.
Yeah,
Remember
wasn't that
them?
like the Mandarin and isn't the Ten Rings? Doesn't he have 10 rings, the Mandarin, in the comics? I think, or something.
So this is where we need to talk about something important. So we're not going to talk about supervillains or non-superhero characters. So all you Jimmy Woo fans out there, I'm very, very sorry, but we're not going to be talking about him.
That's rough, buddy.
Best soundboard effect ever.
But I do want to talk about the Mandarin just for a second there, because the Mandarin is a pretty terrible Chinese stereotype. Awful. He's this Fu Manchu villain of Iron Man who has these 10 alien magic
wasn't
rings.
there a character called Fu Manchu as well in either DC or Marvel?
I mean, okay, so Fu Manchu is a very, very old, like Sherlock Holmes old villain who is a great example of the earliest, almost certainly the most popular example of something called the Yellow Peril in terms of pop culture. And I'm, just so you know, Keepers, I'm making the biggest air quotes I can when I said that. And he did not originate in Marvel or DC, but he's made his way into a lot of contemporary pop culture stuff. Less so nowadays, unless it's something like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore, where he's included purely because he's a character from that time, the Victorian time. And
but it's also, I mean, that style, that very stereotypical style of facial hair, that very stereotypically Asian, the kind of long, thin mustaches that come out to the sides, and then like the little trimmed beard on the chin.
The clawed hands.
That's called the Fu Manchu. Like you can look that up as a beard style, and it's called that now because of that character and its very stereotypical stylings.
And he appeared as in many different things, like I said, sometimes as Fu Manchu, and sometimes as other things that were basically Fu Manchu. Like if you ever saw the classic 1980s movie Flash Gordon, Ming the Merciless is basically space Fu Manchu.
Right, yeah.
So this is why the Mandarin was slightly changed in the third Iron Man movie, even though it turns out the guy who said he was the Mandarin was not the Mandarin. It's revealed that the Mandarin
is a construct.
No, the Mandarin is a real person who does run the Ten Rings organization.
Oh, is it?
Yes. But
I thought it was they just invented a boogeyman called the Mandarin.
No. Okay, so here's what happened. Iron Man is confronted with this guy called the Mandarin, played by Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my god, they've reverbed the Mandarin, but they made him Middle Eastern. Oh, and it turns out that that's not the Mandarin. He's just some guy. Side note, one of Ben Kingsley's best performances to date.
As Trevor.
And then it turns out actually the Mandarin was this other guy, played by Guy Pearce. Except there is a short film called Hail to the King, I believe, which sees Trevor in prison, and it's revealed that he, at the end of the short film, spoiler alert, he is kidnapped by an operative for the Ten Rings organization who says, "You pretended to be the Mandarin, well, now you're gonna get to meet him." And it's So maybe they will bring the Mandarin back in his, quote, proper form. I really hope they don't resort to
Probably
racial
for
stereotyping.
Shang-Chi, right? You'd think.
Well, they
Maybe?
are because, well, here's the thing.
Oh.
It's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, but also one of the earliest incarnations of Shang-Chi in the Marvel Universe was the idea that he was the son of Fu Manchu. That's been downplayed as the years have gone on, as Marvel lost the rights to Fu Manchu. I don't know if... I was under the impression that Fu Manchu was public domain. Maybe he is now. But there's that connection. So, who knows? I hope they don't go back to racial stereotyping. But honestly, I'm just looking forward to seeing some actual Asian representation. I'm looking at you, Ancient One.
Yeah. Oh my God. I just watched Doctor Strange yesterday with my wife. We're going through the whole Marvel timeline, and so we're at Doctor Strange. We're almost towards the end now, and we're almost in the end game now. And but yeah, and that was one of the things that I had to pause, and I was like, so, this is one of the things about the movie that didn't have to be this way, but they made it this way. Nobody really knows why, and it just
I know why.
It is.
I know exactly why, and most people know exactly why. And the reason is because Marvel, that's what I thought at first. But then someone enlightened me and told me Marvel, specifically Disney, because I'm more than happy to put the blame on Disney, the Ancient One in the comics is Tibetan. And they wanted a Chinese film market. You could see where I'm going with this.
But, I mean, couldn't they just have gotten a Nepalese person? They put it in Nepal, so just...
Yeah, no, they cast a white woman, and I love Tilda Swinton.
I mean, shit, get an old Indian lady. I mean, you can still make it a woman if you want to, if you want to change the gender, that's fine. Still make it a woman, just make it like an Indian lady or a Nepalese lady, which would have made more sense as somebody who grew up and grew old in and around Kamartaj. Like,
it was very blatant, and people rightly called them out for it. And
I mean, they do acknowledge there was a line, because I remember listening to it this time too, and they do acknowledge there's like, oh well, she's the only thing we know about her is that she's Celtic and she's old as hell. Because like Stephen asked Mordo, so how old is she? And he's like, nobody knows. She's just Celtic, and she came here God knows how long ago.
As someone who lives in a country with deep Celtic roots, we talked about Asian people not being a monolith. Celtic people aren't a monolith. That's all. Right. You say Celtic, that could be, Scots, Picts, Irish Celtic. It could be Northern French, like Brittany sort of thing.
The Gaelic, yeah.
The Gaelic, there's Gaelic, there's Gaelic, there's different Celtic languages.
Right.
So you say Celtic, but that seems like that's very convenient for you. I want to move on now.
They just have to explain, here's why she's white. That's basically it. Like, they don't really go into it any deeper. They're just like, yeah, so she's Celtic and super old. That's all you need to know about her past.
Here's why she's white. Don't be mad at us.
Yep. End of story. Call it a day. Old, ancient white people, so still ancient. Just focus on the ancient part. Nothing else matters. Thank you.
But there's one character that I can never truly be mad at. It's Jubilee.
Yeah, she's sweet. I mean, kind of lame. A little lame sometimes.
No! I'm sorry. I have... No!
No, you know what? No. Here's the thing. I will... Listen, here's why I say it. I say it because I'm talking about the classic, the version of Jubilee from the 90s and stuff, which was pretty much just pretty sparkles, little explosions here and there. Yes, I know that since then in the comics, she's had like all kinds of story arcs where she loses powers, becomes a vampire, goes all crazy, and that she has, since, there has since been theorized that she could have the ability to be a walking subatomic bomb and, explode people on a subatomic level and such and such. Very cool stuff. But the one that I grew up with, kind of just pretty colors girl, just light show girl.
I mean, I get why you think that, but here's the thing. Have you ever had someone lob a firework in your face? No, because that would kill you.
Okay, I mean, fair. Again, she was a long-standing member of the team. She obviously stayed on the team for a long time throughout all of my childhood and etc. So, props to her. But let's face it, those early versions of her powers, the traditional kind of thing, was literally like, well, she's Chinese American. They do a lot of fireworks for their New Year's. That's about all we know about them. So how about just fireworks powers for the Chinese American girl?
I honestly didn't put that together. That's my privilege showing. Oh, God.
It's
sure.
just like they took like the two things they might have known about, like, well, I know in San Francisco they have, the Chinese New Year's every year. It's a big deal. Lots of fireworks. All right. Fireworks. Let's just have her do a light show all the time.
What is the point of Britain having Guy Fawkes Night every year if we're not going to be known as the ones who do fireworks? Shit. We have burned down whole towns with our fireworks displays. Like, seriously,
you
go
guys
online.
like fireworks so much, you literally were like, you know what? And we're going to celebrate a holiday that, first of all, we're going to celebrate a day where our entire system of government was almost blown up. And we're going to do it with fucking fireworks. We're going to blow more shit up, baby!
Basically, yeah. Hey, let's celebrate the death of a known terrorist by waving sparklers in the air, eating toffee apples, and setting the sky on fire.
Good times. Good times.
I mean, I'm just, honestly, going back to Jubilee briefly, I'm just looking to see her portrayed properly in live action, because she was played by a scene in the background of the first X-Men film, then by a completely different actor in two other films, and then in X-Men Apocalypse, despite the fact that she turned up in like the 2000s, she's now in the 80s, played by a completely different actor. Why? We did a separate movie to explain why Jubilee is traveling throughout time, just to make any of this make sense.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is like, all of her on-screen appearances so far, I feel like, have been very forgettable because I don't really remember them very well. Like, I'm vaguely aware, like, oh yeah, that movie did have Jubilee in it, right? Probably the cartoons is where she was the most prominently featured, and in my memory, at least, is where she actually had any kind of real screen time and character.
I think now's a good time for some ads. Check them out. And we're back, and so now I want to go to a DC character for the first time. Again, another Chinese character. This is slightly lesser well known from the Batman Beyond animated series, The Green Lantern, Cairo.
Oh man, when you said Batman, I thought we were gonna maybe go like Cassandra Cain or something, and then you threw me for a loop. Yes, lesser known. Don't help, please.
Cassandra Cain would have been an excellent choice, but she's not on any of my choices. Whoopsies.
Oh, it's all good. So enlighten me about Cairo, though.
I mean, I don't know much about this guy. He kind of looks like Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender if you took away his tattoos and put him in a green onesie. But this is a kid who was raised in a Buddhist monastery and then got a Green Lantern ring, and then joined the future version of the Justice League. I don't know much about him, but I just want to bring that up because it's kind of cool, having this Buddhist monk kid be a Green Lantern. Imagine the ways that they could use the Ring of Power.
Yeah, that would be awesome. What? Okay, yeah, I'm looking this up now, and it almost looks like somebody put Aang in a Green Lantern suit.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Basically, took away the arrow and then put him in a Green Lantern suit, which, I mean, would still be really cool. I would watch that all day.
Okay, I mean, let's be honest. They're letting anyone into the Green Lantern Corps these days. I mean, they let fucking Daffy Duck in, so...
No, what?
Okay, that was part of the Duck Dodgers cartoon series, but yeah, he became part of the Green Lantern Corps.
Oh, jeez.
It was really fucking stupid. I just want to bring that up because, oh god, jeez, I don't know how long this episode is going to be, but I'm going to try and keep it brief. We need to talk about Zorn. Do you know Zorn?
I don't. Hold on, I'm looking up Zorn.
Xorn. So Zorn was a mutant which had sort of like really cool powers, but he turned out to be Magneto in disguise. Oh noes. Then, however, a new Zorn turned up. A Zorn that claimed to be a completely different person, that was conclusively proven not to be Magneto, who was Chinese. And he didn't take off his helmet thing that he had, because he claimed to, I think, like, his essence was a dwarf star.
He has a black hole in his head or something?
Oh, it was a black hole. A black hole in his head. And
What?
okay, so this guy claimed to be Shen Zorn. He claimed to be the twin brother of the original Zorn, who was not Magneto for some reason, but was this guy called Kuan Yin Zorn. And let me put it this way: that sounds really confusing, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know this name Kuan Yin. That seems very interesting because I know when I was a little kid, I read a little bit of Chinese mythology, and I know that like the living Kuan Yin is like an important figure in the mythology. So that might be where they got that name, at least.
Well, you can throw all of that away because no one knows really what's going on with Zorn. Marvel have not given a single goddamn explanation, at least not a complete one, to fans. Then it was revealed afterwards that Zorn became this living embodiment of all of mutants' energy, known as the Collective, that merged with a postman.
What?
It's a fucking mess, and it's a shame because when you look at a picture of Zorn, he looks fucking awesome. He looks so cool, but no one knows what his fucking deal with. To quote Wolverine, even Zorn's files on Zorns are incomplete. So I want to move on to something that I find much more easy to stomach. Atom, aka Ryan Choi.
Yeah.
Now, sorry, did you say you had seen the Snyder Cut?
I haven't. No, I haven't because I haven't seen any of the DC movies other than I think Wonder Woman.
Well, I don't want to spoil things for you, but I will mention this. Ryan Choi does make an appearance in that movie. And he's also apparently in the Arrowverse crossover thing, Crisis on Infinite Earths, played by Osric Chow. But I have not seen that because I can't be doing with the Arrowverse. One thing I will say about Ryan Choi, he is a precious baby! I love him!
Did the Snyderverse version kind of suffer the fate that the comic book version did? Or?
No, that we see him pre-Atom days. What happened to him in the comics?
From what I hear, because again, I'm not super up to date on this stuff, but I mean, I know like so he obviously I think he succeeds Ray Palmer as the Atom.
Yes,
and then he's the Atom for a little while, and it's kind of cool because that's a pretty kind of mainstream hero being succeeded by an Asian person, and so that was very cool. But then they killed him. Then they said, "Oh, you're gonna die," and somebody just killed him. And I think now somebody else is the Atom or something. And so.
This is much worse.
He died. And people were like, "What the fuck?" So you let him have it for 5 minutes and then killed him.
He was a sweet, cool, funny, endearing, non-Tosket masculine angel. And they killed him. Fuck you, DC. I knew there was a reason I didn't like you.
So DC does not respect their characters, I feel. Well, Warner Brothers doesn't respect their characters.
So that's my picks for Chinese or Chinese-American superheroes. I want to move now on to Japanese and Japanese-American superheroes. There's one character that I really want to talk about, but unfortunately, it necessitates me talking about someone who I don't want to talk about, but we have to. Joss Whedon. So Joss Whedon worked on this X-Men comic called Astonishing X-Men. And it's excellent. It's an excellent series. And it introduced this character called Hisako Ichiki, aka Armor. She has the ability to sort of project this energy field around her that takes the form of a suit of armor. And she's sort of become a bit of a breakout character. She got progressively more and more involved in the series as it went on issue by issue. I don't know whether that was intended from the start or they just liked the character. I know I like the character. She develops an interesting relationship with Wolverine. Big surprise. Wolverine develops a mentor-mentee relationship with a young girl. What is that, like the fifth one he's done so far? I mean, good for him. He's mentoring girls, but still, that's a pattern.
It's like the Batman thing, right? It's like the Marvel version of the whole Batman thing where it just keeps taking in these young wounded doves.
Basically, yes. And she was even part of the television series X-Men anime X-Men, which I watched like an episode of. It was part of this whole Marvel anime push they were doing. They did like a Wolverine one separate from the X-Men one, an Iron Man one, a Blade one, and then an X-Men one. So it had like Storm and Beast and Cyclops, but also Hisako as Armor, where she's kidnapped by the U-Men.
Who?
I have no idea. They're C-listers, if not D-listers.
The U-Men?
The U-Men. Like I said, I didn't watch much of the show. But, like I say, she's become a breakout character. She retained her powers after all the mutants lost their powers. I think that's been reversed since, which is part of the reason why I don't read Marvel or DC comics anymore, at least not the long-running series, simply because I'm so tired of them introducing big world-shattering events and waiting for them to just completely undo them years later. Because I knew, as soon as I read it, as soon as Scarlet Witch said, no more mutants, I thought, well, how long is this going to last? And in fact, it lasted several years, but I'm sick of that. I'm sick of that. Like, either maintain the status quo and just focus on individual stories with unique character development and, something that shakes up their world but not the world at large. Or if you're going to shake up the world at large, make it stick!
Yes.
Jesus! I mean, they have done that on occasion. Both Marvel and DC have done that, shown how, big superhero events have shaped the world. But more often than not, it's just like, oh, that's a thing that happened. And now it's not. Back to normal. Yay! But thankfully, Armor is going to keep it going. And I hope more people become familiar with her. I do recommend you check out Astonishing X-Men. It is a good series. But this brings us now to, oh God, Big Hero 6.
Didn't see it. Fuck.
Of course you didn't see it, because the book is much better! Well, okay, let me put it this way. I don't mind the movie Big Hero 6. It's fine. It's perfectly inoffensive and paint by numbers. It's absolutely fine. But I just want to make one thing clear. The annoying guy in that movie who puts on like a kaiju costume in the comic book could turn into an actual kaiju.
Oh.
So, yeah, and oh God, and so, what else? There's also this guy who's played by, what's his face from New Girl, also, and Happy Endings, guy who played Coach. He's one of the Wayans, part of the Wayans family.
Oh, yeah. Damn.
Oh, Damon Wayans. Damon Wayans Jr. specifically played him in the movie. Kari Payton took over from him in the animated TV series they made, which I didn't watch as well. But I wanted to point out that his character, who's called Wasabi no Ginger, is actually Asian in the comic book and is a trained chef that uses samurai swords. And in the movie, they made him a tech-wielding, neurotic whiner that uses plasma blades. And it's just like, Marvel, Disney, whoever's in charge, if you're going to adapt Big Hero 6, adapt fucking Big Hero 6. Like, I don't see anyone crying out, oh no, how dare they take on the characters of Fredzilla and Wasabi no Jinja in this way. But it's very annoying. Other characters did slightly better, like Baymax? Maybe? Hiro Takachiho, I think? Yeah, I think he was pretty faithful to the comic, but beyond that, no, it wasn't a great adaptation, to be perfectly honest. If people liked it, fine, sure. But what I liked about the Big Hero 6 comic book, bear in mind I have not read barely any of it, but it really lent into the wackiness that a lot of anime and manga can have.
Right.
Even though there was a Western comic book. It's called Big Hero 6. What self-respecting Western superhero team will call themselves Big Hero 6? But you could see that in an anime.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All day.
So I don't care if they're in Kingdom Hearts 3. The film version can go suck a big one. Another character that hasn't had a great time on the screen is Katana. So she was also in the Arrowverse, but of course you haven't seen Suicide Squad, have you?
No, I mean, I remember her look from the posters of that. But...
Yeah, I mean, she has a good look. She has a great look. So in the comics, she's got this sword that traps people's souls in the blade, including her husband. And she's a really interesting character. And in fairness, they do portray that in the movie. What annoyed a lot of people was that this was supposed to be a movie about a team of supervillains, and they just randomly bring in this mercenary, Katana, who's there to help them. It's just like, what was the point of conscripting a bunch of supervillains into your team if you're just going to hire a bunch of superpowered mercenaries? Why didn't you just do that? Clearly there's other people like her for hire, so why bother putting explosive devices in people's skulls if you're just going to pay them? What is the fucking point?
I have my theory. on that. And it is bureaucracy. It is because the agency that was putting together Suicide Squad, right? They put together the Suicide Squad of just the criminals that they implanted the explosives, and then they had some of their budget was just left over. And, the rule in bureaucracy is that if you don't use it, then the next year you're going to lose it. So you have to use all of your budget in order to get the same or more money next year. And so then the leftover money, they're like, well, fuck it, let's just pad it out with some mercenaries.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. And
bureaucracy, man.
If that seems like a cop-out to you, congratulations! You got a cookie.
That's fucking annoying. I mean, we saw her in Arrowverse, and I did see her in Arrowverse, and she was much better portrayed in that show, but it's still the Arrowverse, so who cares? Now I want to get to someone who I really want to talk about. Again, not portrayed fantastically, in my opinion, in live action, but Nico Minoru. She was part of this team called The Runaways, created in the early 2000s by Brian K. Vaughan and Adrian Alfona, and she's awesome. That whole team was awesome. That whole comic was awesome. I don't read it anymore because it kind of took a big swan dive off the deep end. But so if you haven't read it, it's a comic book about a bunch of teenagers who discover that their parents are all supervillains. So they strike out on their own, go on the run, and use their unique abilities that they stole from their parents to fight crime and fight against their parents. And Nico, who occasionally goes by the name Sister Grimm, is a witch, and she uses the Staff of One to cast spells. But here's the thing, she's got two weaknesses. Number one, she can't cast the same spell twice, so she has to get creative. And two, the only way she can summon the Staff of One from within her own body is if she cuts herself.
Oh, yeah. Very goth-tastic presentation.
Yeah, it's
I watched the shows, but I don't think did she cut herself on the show too? Because I think that might have been cut out for TV.
I don't remember that, and I was very disappointed. I was looking forward to that show, but I was very disappointed with it because it was a TV show. It had the budget of a low-production TV show. I mean, let me put it this way. In the comics, they have a vehicle that's in the shape of a giant frog that gets everywhere by bouncing.
Oh, yeah, you can't do that on TV.
Oh, look, we can see the brief glimpse of the dinosaur that one of the characters has for a pet. And that's it was disappointing. I don't care if Spike from Buffy was in it. And yeah, I mean, they had some pretty good representation in there of different ethnicities, and also
it was
LGBT.
a diverse crew. That's what I remember, is that it was, as far as the crew went and everything, they had a nice diverse cast of kids, and the
Nico herself was played by Lyrica Okano, who did I thought did an okay job. And
yeah, she was. I mean, again, she was very emo and gothic, so she fit that bill, at least that much of it.
Yeah, and then later on, she left the Runaways, got involved with the Avengers. A whole bunch of shit happened. Ended up joining A-Force, which was Marvel's first all-female Avengers team. It's not going anymore. I can only imagine why. Oh, God. Now, I'm sort of breaking my rule here. I've been going through mainly comic book characters so far, but I want to talk about this one character simply because I love him to bits. I'm talking about Hiro Nakamura from Heroes.
Oh, yeah. So awesome. He was cute as hell. I mean, again, Heroes was a show that I watched, I think, maybe like the first 2 seasons of, and then I genuinely... Sometimes I just get distracted while I'm watching shows, and then I don't find my way back to them. But
you only need to watch the first 2 seasons of Heroes, and even then, the second season is kind of optional. It never recovered from that.
Yeah, but Hero was just so much fun. I loved him. I liked
him. I liked his relationship with his best friend Ando, who was Japanese in the show, but I believe was played by a Korean actor. But his actor, Masaoka, is a Japanese actor who's been on things like Hawaii Five-0 and a few other things that I'm not familiar with. But he was great in Heroes because, I mean, he was a geek. He was one of us. He was a complete and utter nerd.
Yeah.
And he was just so full of enthusiasm, but also really wanted to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. He just had the best, like, pure, childlike manner to him, just innocent and pure, and just do the right thing, and just get super excited about whenever stuff happens, and like he's just a lovable, super lovable character.
With the ability to bend space and time, and you never know what. I mean, Heroes segments, because Heroes. It's so annoying that his name is Hero. The show is called Heroes, but Heroes, the show, was very much a not really an anthology thing, but an ensemble thing where we looked at the world through the perspective of several different characters. Hero and Ando being one of them, and I always looked forward to his segments the most when I was watching it, because they were often the most fun, they were the most comedic, but also there was still plenty of drama. It was his relationship with Ando, his desire to write, or that time he got trapped in the past, which was much better than whenever Peter time travelled. You left your girlfriend in the future, Peter! I don't care if you're with Mandy Moore now, you need to go back and get her! I'm still not over that.
Cold, Pete. That was cold, Pete.
That was cold. But I just wanted to... but let's be honest. If it's a television show where Stan Lee felt like he deserved to cameo in it, it's worth our consideration. It's worth talking about.
100%. If Stan has touched it, we will talk about it.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I still occasionally just go back and watch the first season, but it's always Hero that brings me back because he's superhero. Now I want to get into something which I can't wait to talk about now because... there's other Japanese and Japanese American characters I could talk about, like Sunfire and Surge, but I don't know that much about them. But there's a couple of characters that I need to talk about because they're versions of characters that we already know, but with different ethnicities. I'm, of course, talking about Spider-Man. Specifically, the various Japanese, and indeed just Asian in general, spider people that have been. let's go off with one that a lot of people will be familiar with, Penny Parker. So, Penny Parker from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh!
Now,
Yeah.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was in part, or at least inspired by, this huge event comic called Spider-Verse, which was just like, because Spider-Man has had the most alternate versions out of any Marvel character ever. And so they just said, what if we brought them all together to fight this guy that feeds on spider people? So you got like 1602 Spider-Man, British Spider-Man, which was also 1602 Spider-Man, Punk Spider-Man, Spider-Ham, Noir Spider-Man, all these people, including...
Spider-Ham stole the show. But the reason I don't remember Penny is because just Spider-Ham, to me, played by the incomparable John Mulaney, stole the show. You can't remember anyone else except for Spider-Ham. I need the Spider-Ham movie, and I need like 3 or 4 of them.
There's a short film. There's a short film featuring him. Go check it out.
Oh, okay. That's my homework after this.
I've been working on my John Mulaney impression. It can get weirder. That's. I just wash my hands. That's why they're wet. No other reason.
It's that old school transatlantic kind of, yeah.
And they said, what do they say? Give us some money! I can't. I can't do it. It comes across like the old 1940s radio announcers.
Yeah.
Line.
The the Trans-Baltic or Transatlantic, the Baltimore, Mid-Atlantic, something like that, right?
Mid-Atlantic.
Right.
It's a thing that Katharine Hepburn used to speak. I like brisk walks in the garden.
Because basically they needed to bridge the gap between American audiences and British audiences, so they were. I think that's kind of where it came to be.
I pretty much. I think it's just. I don't know. Gillian Anderson has a similar sort of thing going on. Anyway, Penny Parker. She was introduced by artist Jake Wyatt and writer / singer-songwriter Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance / Umbrella Academy fame. I didn't even know this until I did my research for this episode. She was introduced in that comic book and then was brought into Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is really cool because I think she was aged down a little bit, but not that much. She was described as being a school-going age, but she drives the mech that includes a sentient spider inside of it. She's really cool. Played by Kimiko Glenn in the movie. Who is half Japanese, half European. And she was really cool. Like I say, Spider-Ham got a bit more of the fame, but it was cool to see her, and I'd really like to see her again, to be perfectly honest, because, I mean, her mech is called the SP /DR Mecha. That's always cool. But that's just to dip your toes into the Spider-Man Japanese waters, because one of the first Marvel superhero television shows was a live-action Japanese show called, it's called over here Japanese Spider-Man. Over there it was known as, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing this, Supaidaman. And it was just Spider-Man, but in Japan. And it was very much a precursor to the Super Sentai franchise. It incorporated a lot of elements. And then bear in mind, this was made in the late 70s. So it's very much of that time. But you will have seen GIFs. You will have seen clips of Japanese Spider-Man. It's this.
Yeah.
This is one of the precursors. Before...
You're right, I have. I've definitely seen like memes and like, yeah.
And
this is not old school. Okay, that's where that comes from.
It's not a dub of like an American production. It's okay. His backstory is completely different. Okay, so this is a guy called Takuya Yamashiro, who's a motorcycle racer. He sees a UFO falling to Earth, and he investigates it. But there's a bunch of aliens, he gets injected with some alien blood or something, I can't remember, and it gives... he's got robots in it, and then he's blood's from a person from Planet Spider, and that turns him into Spider-Man. So this is not Peter Parker, is what I'm getting at. It's beautifully bizarre, and if you're a Spider-Man fan, you kind of have to check it out just to see the history of Spider-Man, because Spider-Man cartoon productions have been made before this, most notably the 60s Spider-Man show. But this followed after that, and there was also a live-action American Spider-Man production, but I honestly can't remember if that came before or after this. I'm pretty sure it came after, but don't quote me on that. But I just wanted to bring that up because, you know what? Fair play to the Japanese.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
He's still Spider-Man, absolutely. He's very different, but he's still Spider-Man. Much like the various manga versions of Spider-Man. There have been several different manga Spider-Man. Any of you have ever played a Spider-Man video game, sometimes you might see an extra skin for Spider-Man, or an extra costume that is modeled after the Japanese Spider clan of later versions of Spider-Man manga. One of the earliest ones was made in 1970, and it's, or was it 1976? I'm not quite sure. But again, it's not Peter Parker. It's this high school student named Yu Komori who gets bitten by a radioactive spider and is now Spider-Man. And there are several different versions of this. It's amazing. I haven't read any of them. More shame for me. There's various other like X-Men mangas, Hulk mangas. In fact, there's three main Spider-Man mangas. There's this one, a subsequent one called Spider-Man J, the art style of which scares me deeply, and then Spider-Man, which is just referred to as... oh wait, no, that's something else. Yeah, I think it's just called another manga Spider-Man. They weren't very creative with the titles. I don't even know why Spider-Man J was called Spider-Man J. I just want to bring this up because I think it's so cool. There's so many different versions of Spider-Man, especially because I want to move on now to... so we talked about Chinese superheroes, Japanese superheroes, and I want to talk about Indian superheroes. I think this brings us nicely to Indian Spider-Man.
There was an Indian Spider-Man? Get the fuck out.
I will not get the fuck out of here because So there's this guy called Pavita Prabhakar. I'm butchering that pronunciation. I do apologize. Who is a simple Indian boy who lives in a remote village, moves to Mumbai with his Aunt Maya and his uncle Bim, and becomes Spider-Man. It's basically the Spider-Man story, but it's more of a direct translation than previous Japanese versions. But there is a version of Spider-Man that is Indian. He was created by this chap called Sharad Devajaran, who's...
Devrajan, I think. Sharad Devrajan, probably. I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what? India, where was this when I was growing up, God damn it?
Hey, it only came out 2004 and ran for 4 issues between 2004 and 2005, and hasn't popped up a lot of the time. He's a playable character in the video game Spider-Man Unlimited, which is like a mobile endless runner thing, so yeah. And he did turn up in the Spider-Verse storyline they mentioned up earlier. And there's also all the characters are there. You know, there's Mary Jane Watson, Naman Oberoi, Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn, and a guy who's just Dr. Octopus. They didn't even change the name.
They were like, we can't translate that one.
And this is so interesting, though. It was all based on this director who I'm unfamiliar with, Satyajit Ray, who met Stan Lee in New York to discuss creating an Indian version. Sadly, Ray died before this version was released. But this is the thing. This is what I like about Stan Lee, because he was so very willing to not use necessarily, but bring in other cultures respectfully into the Marvel universe. And this is something that, and also just in general, because this brings us to this other superhero called Chakra the Invincible. It's I don't know if it's a film or if it's an animated series or it's just a Flash series on YouTube, but it was created by Stan Lee and Sharad Devajaran, like I mentioned earlier, and this other guy, Gotham Chopra. And it's an animated thing about this Indian kid with superpowers. I know next to nothing about it, except I've seen a few clips from the animated show, movie, whatever it is, and it's narrated by Stan Lee.
This looks so cool. Dude, I mean, this is so bittersweet for me to learn, because I had no idea any of this existed. None of it existed when I was a kid. And I'm mad as hell about that, but at the same time, I'm really happy that at least, Indian nerds, like my younger nerdy versions of myself, will at least have this now. But, man, fuck, I gotta check all of this stuff out.
This is why representation is so important. Representation is so important. Because, kids can look at this. I mean, because honestly, I tried to discover as many Indian superheroes as I could. I did not have a lot of success, to be perfectly honest with you. There's another...
I don't know that many. Like, I feel like there's maybe like 3 or 4.
Again, when you look at Indian mythology, specifically Hindu mythology,
right?
You could argue that, again, many of those mythological figures could be analogous to superheroes.
They absolutely are. And I mean, we've got literally there's comic book versions, illustrated comic book versions, graphic novels of all of the famous Indian myths and legends. Yeah. And so, that was for me, in the early part of my childhood, that was my comic books, was reading the stories of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and everything like that. And so, and they were kind of like superheroes, because they do have a lot of those same characteristics and qualities and kind of a superhuman, otherworldly abilities and cool epicness going on. So, I mean, the mythology definitely fills a gap, but still, it's cool to see it in the Marvel context too, because as a kid I didn't have that, and it was always it definitely was a bummer that I was like, it'd be cool to have a brown superhero who looked kind of like me, and that would be fun to see what that's all about. And so I mean, the one that I know now that's the most prominent, that I've actually had the most exposure to, is Miss Marvel, who is Pakistani, but who I love. What a great character, and fleshed out pretty nicely from what I see. And
I mean, that brings us nicely to Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. She is getting her own show. It looks like it's going to be awesome.
I'm so excited. I played the game, the Marvel game, which she's the protagonist of. And I hated the game. I hated the game. I have to be honest. The gameplay was just repetitive and awful, and I didn't like it. But the parts with Kamala Khan, with Miss Marvel, the parts, especially the parts with her family and with her interacting with her family and talking to them and stuff, it was just so warm and genuine and culturally accurate, I thought. And I just loved, it was so warm. I could literally see my friends, my own family, having those similar dynamics and cultural leanings. And it made me so happy to see it. It made me so happy, because Pakistanis and Indians, it's at least abroad, tend to have much more in common with each other than not. We have very similar cultures and traditions, and we pretty much speak the same language. And so, while within the subcontinent there's a lot of hatred, abroad we tend to get along pretty well. And so I just loved seeing it. I just loved seeing that represented.
Let's be honest, my government owns a fair share of blame for that.
Yeah.
Who thought partition was a good idea?
Whole other podcast.
I mean, and that whole game was basically one big...
Up yours, children.
Yeah, the gameplay was awful.
But I love the character. I mean, I read the original run and I stopped really following her character after she started getting involved in all of these teams, because that's what Marvel does. What a lot of comic book companies do is the minute a character gets a lot of popularity, they just shove her into a bunch of teams. It's just like, that's not what we liked about her. We liked seeing her on her own personal journey.
Right.
Jesus. I mean, if some people liked her seeing her as part of the Champions, good for you. I personally can't wait to see her in the Miss Marvel Disney Plus TV show and Captain Marvel 2. Yeah!
Yeah, I am so excited for both of those things. I'm so excited to see it represented on a much bigger screen and to see those relationships explored. Who are they? Do you know who have they cast? I'm gonna look this up because I want to look up this cast for the Miss Marvel show. And who they cast as their family.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I've got my notes here. She's going to be played by an actor named Iman Vellani. Who, as far as I'm aware, I haven't seen in anything else.
Oh, they didn't. Okay, they didn't get the guy I would have thought, but I guess he's probably a little too old at this point to play that.
I mean, this actor is about 18, 19, so which makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, I was thinking about for the dad character who it was going to be, and I wasn't sure, and it's not who I thought it was going to be. But
who did you think it was going to be?
I thought it was going to be Anupam Khed. I just, whenever I think of like an adorable, kindly dad, I just think Anupam Khed automatically. And it's not. It's somebody called Mohan Kapoor, who I don't know super well. I don't think he doesn't look super familiar to me. But I'm sure he'll do well.
And personally, I hope that this leads to much more Middle Eastern, Pakistani, just Muslim characters in general being portrayed on screen, especially because we've got our own Muslim superhero right here in the UK that needs way more attention. There's a character called Faiza Hussain. She is a Muslim woman of Pakistani heritage who lives in Essex, England. I don't know if you ever heard of the TV show The Only Way is Essex. Don't watch it.
Isn't that like the rich British people version of Jersey Shore?
No, not even close. They're all...
Oh, shit, okay.
They're about on the same level as Jersey Shore, let me put it that way.
But they're like rich, right?
You might be thinking of this other... They made me think of this other show called... something Made in Chelsea. I don't watch any of these shows. This is crap television that I have no part of. Like, Americans think that all British programming is just like Downton Abbey and Masterpiece Theatre. No, we have shit too, mainly on Channel 4 and a little bit on BBC.
I saw on Reddit somebody shared it. This crazy fucking show, British show, I guess, a British dating show where like they're naked. And they just have to check each other out naked and then see if they want to go on a date. Like, there's various processes of elimination. It's like a really bizarre concept and show. And
that's one of the more highbrow dating shows in the UK.
No, really? What's the worst one? What's worse than that? I need to know.
Where people are just having sex on camera. Like, I'm not even joking. The people in Channel 4 are basically just selling sex. Because we have several... We don't just have the BBC over here. We have BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, which no one watches, but still. Sky. And all that shit. Yeah. But there's this... Channel 4 attempts to appear more... And I'm not saying Channel 4 never does good programming, but they attempt to appear more civilized, more sophisticated by doing these documentaries. And one of these documentaries was a bunch of mums making a porn film.
What?
I'm not joking. It was like Mums Make Porn. That was the name. That was what it was called. It was about these suburban mums making a porn film. And guess what?
Like a single porn film or just having OnlyFans accounts?
No, they weren't the performers in the porn film. They were going to write it, shoot it, direct it, and just put it all together with other actors taking. And then they were going to. They had a premiere. They had a premiere of the porn film.
So, but it was just like the production company as a group of moms, basically.
Yes, because they didn't like the idea of all of their teenagers watching porn. So they said, I know, here's what we'll do. We'll make good porn. It was not good porn. It was not good porn at all.
Yeah, porn, mom approved porn. That sounds like a hot ticket right there. This porn was approved by your mother. That's great. That's gonna get me right in the middle.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Just every single fact begins with, this porn has been approved by your mother. Oof.
I like to point out that this was broadcasted, and it's about as good as it gets for Channel 4, at least in terms of the crap versions. Anyway...
Are Channel 4 the people behind Love Island? That's a show I hear a lot about.
Oh, God, Love... I can't. No, Archit, I can't. Okay. I will not give that show... I would not give that show the oxygen of publicity just by talking about it.
Okay.
Faiza Hussein is a Muslim woman living in London. She's a doctor who wears a hijab. I believe it's a hijab. It's not a niqab. No, it's a hijab. And she gets caught up in the Skrull invasion. And this gives her superpowers, as you do. And she eventually becomes the wielder of Excalibur. Now,
wait, what? That's a lot of jumps were made, I think.
I'm summarizing, but here's the thing.
Okay.
I cannot overstate how important it is that a Middle Eastern Muslim woman who wears a hijab
is wielding Excalibur.
How important that is. That is supremely important. But here's the thing. She's English. So why not?
Right.
She's so cool. She doesn't wear a costume. She's just her in of herself. We've seen her a few times since then, like things like Age of Ultron and Secret Wars. That's Age of Ultron, the comic book, not the movie. I believe she's turned up in the Facebook game, Marvel Avengers Alliance. But... And I'm not supremely familiar with the character. I've seen her a few times. She gets involved a lot with the Excalibur superhero team and the organization called MI13. It's like MI6, but 13. Ooh.
More secret.
And yeah, she's one of the champions of Europe alongside Ares, Captain Britain, Outlaw, Peregrine, Guillotine. I don't know who most of these people are. That's pretty
awesome.
It's so awesome. It's so truly awesome. And she's named partially after the former England cricket captain, Nasser Hussain. I don't know anything about cricket, but that's a fun little tidbit for you. So, yeah, and that's the thing. She only turns up really in... Well, the main thing she turned up in was Captain Britain and MI13, issue number 1, 2008. And despite the comic being named after Captain Britain, it's really about her. And she's awesome. She's the wielder of goddamn Excalibur. All hail to the Queen, baby.
That is really cool. That is really, really cool.
And
how recently was this? 2008. Okay.
2008. And this is when, because here's the thing. Britain is, despite what a lot of politicians will tell you, is supremely diverse. I've lived in places that have been very diverse. Edinburgh I live in right now is very diverse. Other places I've lived in, like the Cotswolds, where my parents live, not very diverse at all. Although you still meet people who aren't white. Let's be perfectly clear. But so... I can only imagine how great it is for a British person to read that comic book and see someone that looks like them, but is not defined by any one thing. She's not defined by being a woman or a Muslim or Pakistani or even being a doctor. She's defined as the wielder of Excalibur. That's who she is. And that's great. But also on the other side of that, you've got some people who are... I was going to say not ashamed. Faiza Hussein was never ashamed. Who are not solely defined by their ethnicity or their religion, but it's also an inescapable part of them that they're not afraid to display. And that's best shown in the character of Dust from the X-Men, who has these sand powers but wears a traditional niqab and nothing else. Like, she doesn't wear a superhero costume, she just wears a niqab. And
Oh wow, yeah.
it's great because they don't shy away from it either. There's this one character that I mentioned earlier, Surge, who's a bit of a dick, who's just like, oh, why are you wearing that? That's offensive. It's like oppressive and shit. And yes, in some countries, traditional clothing like that is a symbol of oppression. But for Dust, it's an honest and genuine choice.
Yeah.
It's
that's
part
a
of
powerful thing that more people need to be aware of and understand, is that, it's the really important thing is to have choice. And if you choose to do that, and that's what makes you feel great, and then cool, you know what I mean? Everyone have the choice. Wear the bikini, wear the niqab, whichever one makes you feel your best, and it's your choice to do it. Hell yeah.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, it's just clothes. It's clothes. It's part of your expression.
Yep.
No one has the right. I mean, because here's the thing: niqabs and as they're often misidentified as burqas, have been a point of contention in Europe. There's this trending horrible thing called "ban the burqa," which is an awful, stupid thing. There's a debate going on in this country and in France. France was very much, as far as I'm aware, apologies, French people, I'm getting this wrong, was very much anti people wearing things like that. But here's the thing. It took a man who is objectively a racist, Boris Johnson, our beloved Prime Minister, having to come up and say, several years ago, it's okay to wear the burqa, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, support your right to do so. But even he followed it up by saying, if you want to look like a letterbox, that's your choice. And it's
my God, what?
He's such a fucking arsehole. He really, truly is.
My God.
Like, I am not above making fun of people's clothes, especially, which is hypocritical of me, seeing as how I have terrible taste in fashion. But you're the goddamn Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Treat that moment, talking about faith and people's right to self-express and express their faith in their clothes, with some goddamn respect.
Yeah.
And this is coming from an atheist! A fucking atheist! I don't give a shit about religion, but I support people's right to fucking wear that if they choose. And if I can get that right, so can you, you fucking Cabbage Patch doll.
Just damn it, Boris. You were so close to doing a good thing just in and of itself and just having it end there. You had to ruin it.
God, that doesn't even rank the number of racist things he's done. He's a truly vile person. But check Dust out in the X-Men comics. She is really cool. Now, so that's a lot of Middle Eastern characters. I want to go now to a Korean American character that I'm not very familiar with, but I kind of want to be more familiar with. This guy called Amadeus Cho.
Yes, that was the one when I was kind of doing the little bit of research, which I apologize to the audience, who can clearly tell that I didn't do a whole lot of it. That he was the one, though, that I was like, oh man, this guy, I want to actually go and read his comics now and check out any show appearances he's done and stuff, because he seems really cool. He takes the Hulk, he takes the power of the Hulk into him, willingly somehow, or?
Yeah, I mean, this is in... okay, so Amadeus Cho turned up. He was created by Greg Pak, who was created things like Extreme X-Men, and Takeshi Miyazawa, who you may know from the excellent Mary Jane Loves Spider-Man series. They're excellent. And they were created, appeared in Amazing Fantasy in 2005. And he's been brought back a couple of times, things like World War Hulk and Incredible Hercules. But then in 2015, there was a thing called the All Different Marvel thing, where they're basically just rebranding a lot of Marvel properties. It was hit and miss, let me put it that way, charitably speaking. And he became the Hulk in this new series, The Totally Awesome Hulk. Because here's the thing, you can get away with calling it the Totally Awesome Hulk. It's very, very Marvel Now sort of thing. Marvel Now is basically Catholicism Now from the movie Dogma. It's that sort of mentality. But it's really cool because Amadeus Cho didn't have any superpowers. He was just a really smart kid. In fact, he was described by Reed Richards as like the 8th most powerful, the 7th most, seventh most intelligent kid, or intelligent person even, in the whole world. And I love characters whose superpower is they're smart. That's why I like Doctor Who so much. So now he's the Hulk, though, but he accepts it willingly. It's not really a burden for him. He's just like, I want to be the Hulk because I think I could use that to great effect. And full disclosure, I have not read that series either, but I want to. Mm-hmm. I really do. And he's popped up a few times in television, like Superhero Squad Show, Ultimate Spider-Man, bleh.
Because it also seems like the way he inherits the Hulk powers, he's kind of like the Infinity Wars Hulk, the Endgame Hulk, where he's like smart. It seems like his version of the Hulk still has full like cognitive capabilities, but all the power of a Hulk, which just sounds awesome. So he's still the 8th smartest person on the planet and is hulking out.
I mean, you know what that makes him?
That sounds awesome.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
Dude, yeah, that sounds awesome. Like just Hulk being Hulk, but super smart.
And from what I know about him, he's a little bit of a smartass about it. He's very confident, and I really like that. Also, apparently, he has a pet coyote. Who knows? But I don't know much about him. Another character who I believe is I don't know if she's Korean American but she's this character called Silk, who's introduced in Spider-Man comics.
Mm-hmm.
She had like the powers of Spider-Man, but they had like this intense pheromone thing going on. So every time they were in the room together, they couldn't help but make out. It was not your proudest moment, Dan Slott. Just that's all I'm saying.
I had no idea about the awkward sexual tension part of all of that. I did know, like, I was aware of Silk that she was bitten, I think, by the same spider as Peter Parker, right?
Basically, yeah. It's been ages since I read this, and this was, I checked out of Spider-Man pretty much as soon as One More Day happened. Just did not care. But since then, she's, again, been a bit of a breakout character. Apparently, she's been in Spider-Man Homecoming and Avengers Infinity War. Very minor background character played by this actor called Tiffany Espenson. But, she's in there. And she was considered to be turning up in Spider-Man Into Spider-Verse, but they went with Penny Parker instead, which honestly I think was a better choice. But she's been considered for a television series. There's all sorts of things going on. She's appeared in a few video games. So not for nothing, but the character or her alter ego is called Cindy Moon. So she may turn up in the future, so keep an eye out for her. One thing I do want to talk about that is really fucking weird to me. You know Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
You know Mantis?
Yes.
She's Asian in the comics.
Well, she is in the movie too, isn't she?
Well, the actor who plays her, Pom Clementif, is she's French with with a Korean mother and a French Russian father.
Okay.
But she's not from Asia. She's not from Earth. She's very much an alien.
Okay.
In the comics, I don't know a whole deal, but she definitely looks like she does in the movie, except more green skin. But she is she's half German, half Vietnamese.
Oh.
And again, I don't know much about this character in the comics, but I thought that was an interesting fact. I did not know that. I learned something today.
I had no idea. I always figured that she was just probably, because I think she is mostly, even in the comics, mostly in the Guardians universe, right? So
she definitely is in space more often than not.
I think she was
in the Avengers at one point. I don't know.
Yeah, but you just assume that because she's in space all the time and mostly associated with the Guardians. I always just assumed, okay, she's probably just some kind of alien or something. That's cool. I didn't know that.
No, it's...
I don't know what that says about her character now. Like, I'm trying to think about what that might say, and I don't know. Maybe nothing.
But one character that is yet to really get any sort of outside of the comics love is this character called Karma, aka Jean Khoi Man, who's a Vietnamese superhero created by Chris Claremont, who has the ability to like possess people or something like that. I never really understood her powers, but she was part of the New Mutants with Cannibal, Mirage, Sunspot, Wolfsbane, conspicuously absent in the live-action movie.
Yeah, they don't. It's just that's the thing that I keep thinking about as we're going through these lists is that like most of these characters we haven't seen like a whole lot of representation on the screen, like where there would really be a widespread recognition of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting though because this character came around at a time when exactly was it published? It was 1980, so this is post-Vietnam War. And this was time from the late 60s to the 80s. There were actually quite a few Vietnamese characters popping up in Marvel, all uniformly small side characters. I can only really think of two off the top of my head. This one and Shashan, who was like Flash Thompson's girlfriend in the comics, who's turned up actually a few times in animated shows and stuff. But again, it's one of those things that Marvel does. Marvel has never really been one to shy away from real-world events and how they can impact people. They do talk about the effect of the Vietnam War, both in terms of Karma and that character. And it's so interesting to go back and read those stuff because Marvel operates on a sliding time scale, so none of these characters now were around during the Vietnam War. But when they first were introduced, they very much were. And it's very interesting, I think. It takes someone a lot more smarter than me to do a proper dissection of it. But Karma deserves some mention because, like I said, founding member of the New Mutants, really cool powers. She's been sticking around in X-Men Legend for a long, long time now, and she was one of the first major lesbian characters in mainstream comics. So she deserves props just for that.
Nice. Yeah, here's hoping some of these characters make it to the screen and
why wasn't she in The Gifted?
Would have been cool. Yeah, I don't know. The Gifted really seemed like just a lot of lost opportunities because the premise of the show seemed so interesting, and then it just got lost.
One character though that has gotten a bit more love outside of comic books is the character of Artemis Croc. You may know her as Tigress. You might also know her as she was just called Artemis in Young Justice.
Did
you watch Young Justice?
I didn't. Did I watch Young Justice? Maybe.
I mean, she's an interesting character because, well, again, I'm going from Young Justice lore and comic book lore because in Young Justice she's half Vietnamese, half Caucasian. I'm not sure if that's the case in the comics. She's also apparently turned up in the new show Stargirl, which I've watched like 3 episodes of. It's shit. I wanted to bring this up simply because, again, this is another example, if I'm right about this, about her being a character that was Caucasian in the original version, but then became, at the very least, mixed heritage in an animated show. I find that interesting because it came out to no backlash. The world did not crumble around us, as many conservative people claim when they see a character that used to be white suddenly portrayed as not white. No, they're cancelling Santa. He's fictional, you fuckwits.
But I mean, this is also a character that I think, I don't know, maybe the level of exposure this character has might also be an influence on how much backlash there is. Because I think if you take a really mainstream character like the Hulk, for instance, and you turn them Asian, that I could see people, because there's a huge enough fan base that there's probably going to be some voices that are very polarized by that. But I don't know. I mean, the Tigress, and even Stargirl or whatever, like the whole thing. I don't know these teams too well. I think they're, she's kind of a character that maybe doesn't have as big of a fan base to really generate a lot of controversy.
But that's the things, though. With the advent of Young Justice, the character got more into the mainstream, and a lot of these characters in this quote-unquote new incarnation develop their own fan base. And that's what makes it interesting. And you get people growing up with these characters thinking they're this one ethnicity, then going back and finding out, oh, they've actually started out not this ethnicity. Huh? But they keep this, again, quote-unquote, new ethnicity in their minds. And that's how the character gets even more cemented as that. And I find that fascinating, purely from a psychological point of view. And this brings us to the concept of legacy characters. I mentioned this character before on the show, Connor Hawke, who took over the role of Green Arrow from his dad, Oliver Queen. He's very much of mixed ethnicity. He's mixed Asian, African, European heritage. His mother was half black, half Korean, and his dad was Caucasian. And this was a time when DC was doing a lot of legacy characters, like, okay, get rid of the old guard, now it's time for the new blood.
Right.
And he's one of those characters that has popped up every now and then, but didn't have the same staying power as a lot of other ones.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know what it is about these characters, right? That for some reason there's just like whatever that magical formula to get them to stick is, it just doesn't. I don't know. Do we need better writing? Like, is it who's writing these characters, who's creating these characters, or are there just the audiences are just not willing to see it?
It could be a combination of factors, to be perfectly honest. I think it might be the fact that, I mean, this guy did stick around for a little while. I want to make that clear. But I think the problem is with legacy characters, you've got to be very careful how you handle it, because inevitably some people might want to return to the original character. So, but then sometimes not. Sometimes it works, sometimes doesn't. Like, a good example is Blue Beetle. Original character, Caucasian. Then comes in Jaime Reyes, Latino kid, and that character has really cemented itself in the popular consciousness, even more than the original Blue Beetle. I'm sure Ted Kord has his fans, but I don't know. I don't think there is a magic formula for it. I think as long as you write characters well and with sincerity.
Yeah, so writing, right? For some reason, maybe it's like the Asian characters still aren't being written quite as well as they need to be.
Well, Asian characters, honestly, have never been written very well. We could point to all those examples that we've mentioned and how good they are, for better or for worse. But historically, just Asian culture, just in general, bear in mind, Asian culture is not a monolith, has never been presented fantastically in the West, because it started out with stereotyping and misconceptions and mistranslations, and they never really went away. And when people actually do research for films, for television, for whatever, often that can correct some of the misconceptions, and then they put those corrections in their new story, and people go, but that doesn't fit in with my stereotypical idea that I've had from young childhood. And people sort of reject that. Like, I mean, the big thing for me is this Chinese concept of honor, which is, I mean, it's a thing, historically speaking, in Chinese culture, but it's not like it's ever portrayed in any movie that I've ever seen. It's less a concept of personal honor and more a question of societal status. It's less a question of, no one historically from China would say, I've lost honor, like fucking Zuko. They would say, we've lost face.
Yes, I was just about to say the concept of face, exactly.
And bear in mind, that's my very limited British understanding. I'm not Chinese, I'm not Asian. I was not well versed in that culture. But that's at least how I understand it. And this is the problem. Do you keep on writing in the misconceptions because that's just what people know? Or do you take a stand and you write characters that don't fit people's preconceptions, that break the mold, may ruffle some feathers, but also are more accurate and authentic?
So I'm kind of wondering, and this is like an open-ended question because I don't think either one of us has the ability to pull up the answer to this just right off the bat. But in terms of like who did the writing for a lot of these characters that we discussed, I wonder, was it maybe was it a case of like what voices were present in the writer's room? And so maybe we need to get more, like, were there Asian people writing these characters, or has it just primarily been all white guys writing these things? And so they just kind of know, and even if they're trying to be respectful, they kind of know it, but don't personally know it. Because I think for Miss Marvel, I think the writing, a lot of the principal writers for the bigger storylines and stuff have been, I think, of Pakistani and East Asia, like Southeast Asian descent, right? And that, because I know that that's a character that feels to me very authentic and real.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Those characters were, and some other characters that we talked about, and many others beyond that. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list. Have been made by people who are from that culture, from that ethnicity, or at least are part of that ethnicity's diaspora. Some aren't. Like we've mentioned, Karma, written by two white guys.
Right.
But that doesn't make, for my mind, that doesn't make her any less of a good character, because there are characters that have been made, like Fu Manchu, that are just so full of stereotypes. But there are also characters that aren't. And I think it's always great and should always be a priority that people from those cultures create these kind of characters and these kind of worlds and these kind of stories. But, like I said earlier, culture is meant to be shared. And as long as you come from a place of authenticity, respect, and honesty, there's no reason why you can't create the character. But what you got to do is, if you are a white person creating a character that's of an ethnicity different from yourself, which I have done as a writer, you got to know what you're talking about. You got to examine your preconceptions, check your privilege, and if you can, consult people from that culture, because you want to get them right. I mean, the problem is we need people in the writer's room who are from those cultures to begin with. That's half the problem. But what were you going to say, sorry?
So, I mean, the thing that I was going to say is that, I do agree that culture should be shared, but at the same time, I think there's something to be said about the lived experience within a culture that just kind of adds subtle nuances that are hard to share otherwise. You know what I mean? Like that lived experience of it comes through in ways sometimes in writing that might not always, even with really trying to consult and be respectful and stuff. It just adds a little extra oomph to it that brings it to a place where like you can feel the authenticity of it more clearly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because it should always be the priority, and in fairness, I've been on the receiving end of this, because I've seen Americans come over here to Scotland and think, I've been in Glasgow for 2 hours. I can write Braveheart. Right. No, we didn't wear kilts back then, you dicks! Why did you cast a Frenchman as a Highlander? People who made the movie Highlander? Why? You had a Scottish person there and you cast him as an Egyptian? Why? It's baffling. This is why I'm talking about culture, because there are some people out there who say that culture shouldn't be shared, and I say, okay, all right, fine. You can't watch Sherlock anymore, or Doctor Who, or read Harry Potter, or anything like that, because that's our culture, and you're not from that culture. And once you start drawing up those lines, humanity just gets more divided. But if you're going to get rid of those barriers, you can't just take what you like, appropriate it, and then package it and sell it and then just move on. Because culture is important to people and they are telling their own stories. So maybe listen to what they've got to say first. Get their stories out there. Like Chakra the Invincible. That's what Stan Lee did. He took, he got an Indian superhero out there into the relative mainstream, but it was not his story to tell. It was other people's stories that he wanted people to hear.
Right.
And we could see the inverse of that with Big Hero 6. Look at that adaptation. That did not work out well at all. So, and we are so privileged to live in such a unique and diverse world for so many different people. That's what I love. That's what I love about living in a city like Edinburgh. It's so diverse. Yes, it's a strong Scottish, Celtic, in quotation marks, cultural back heritage. But there's so many other different people here from all walks of life. And in tourist season, we basically become Constantinople, the crossroads of the world. Everyone from all over the world comes here. And it's so cool to see them come here and experience our culture, but also to leave a little bit of themselves behind.
Yeah. I know there's this one Scottish chef I've seen like one or two shows, and he's of Indian like Sikh descent, and so he's he's a little like slightly older brown dude with the turban and everything, and then he speaks and he's got the thickest Scottish accent you've ever heard, and I love watching him so much because exactly as you said, I think that's just he's kind of like one of the representations of the beauty of this world and the diversity that we can achieve. That it's just like, how amazing is it? Look at this little guy. He's just awesome. And I mean, he's a great chef, very talented. He's celebrated. He's on TV and everything. But just when he opens his mouth and he speaks in that perfect Scottish accent, it throws me for a loop every time because I expect him to sound like one of like the uncles back home or something.
Yeah.
And then he's just perfectly Scottish, and I love it.
Yeah, because that's the thing. We talked about Asian people aren't a monolith. Honestly, human beings aren't a monolith.
Yes.
And so this is why we're talking about this right now, considering the attacks on Asian Americans. Because as important as it is to note that these are hate crimes, they're attacks on a community. Let's not forget, above anything else, they're an attack on Americans, upon your fellow citizens, or even if they're not citizens, just your fellow human beings.
Yeah, they're an attack on humanity itself. It's just senseless violence.
Senseless violence against people who are innocent, have done nothing wrong, and are not deserving of hate, but are just instead deserving of respect and friendship. Because that's what we need right now. Because my grandparents grew up in World War II in the Blitz. And they tell me, even though they were kids, they remember the spirit of camaraderie and neighborhood that we all had, the spirit of the Blitz, that generation called it, where we as a nation banded together during a time of immense crisis. And I hoped at the start of all this that was going to happen again. It has not. So we need to be the ones to enable. We are under siege right now from coronavirus. That is the enemy. And ignorance is the enemy. And bigotry is the enemy. That's what we fight against, not each other. Because if we fight against each other, guess what? We'll lose. And now we're going to have another ad break. Check it out. And we're back. So, final thoughts. Archit, is there anything else you'd like to say regarding any of the superheroes we talked about, or indeed the state of the world we live in?
Regarding the superheroes, I want to read more Amadeus Cho stuff. So if anybody has any recommendations of where to go, where to start with, I would love to hear those. In terms of the state of the world, it's all I can really say is it's fucked. That's the long and short of it.
It is fucked, but it doesn't have to be fucked.
Yes.
We come together and support each other. Really can. And I see that now. I see so many people right now talking about this rise in Asian hate crimes in America. And it's so good that so many people are talking about it. But I've also seen, because remember what Fred Rogers once told us, look for the helpers.
Yeah.
And people are doing that. People are coming together within the Asian American community to support each other, and from outside the community to support them. Because that's what we need right now.
That's what we need. Exactly.
And so if we've talked about an Asian superhero that any one of you might want to read up on, or were not familiar with, or were familiar with and just like to hear us talking about it, I consider this an hour and a half well spent. And on that note, I think we're going to end the show. Thank you very much, Archie, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I actually think it's been longer than an hour and a half. I can't tell. We're talking so long. Jesus. And if you enjoyed the Showcapers, please tell your friends. Shout it from the rooftops. And if you haven't already, go back into some other super episodes, like our previous times when we talked about the Black Lives Matter movement and black superheroes and how important they are in terms of representation. You can listen to the show on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, or at podcapers.com. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone, the red and blue 3D glasses, those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast for a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!